Shalom, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you to the Shiur today. I hope it's been a wonderful week. I will spent it with your families, uh, with lovely dinners, with lovely gatherings, and I would request everybody to please mute. Please, it's very disturbing. So please mute as you're entering. So I hope you'll had a wonderful season, friends. All of you all with your families and getting together after probably years or months or whatever. Uh, but it's time also to get ahead into the game, get ahead into Torah, ahead back into learning. So a very warm welcome to each one of you in the name of Yeshua. And we're going to study something really fabulous today, something of a very high level and high quality of understanding that's going to bring out the pearls and the essences of all that we've been doing so far in the life of this one person called Joseph. So if you'll all have your Bibles, please turn with me to the book of Genesis, and we're going to read from Bereshit, and we're going to read from chapter 44, Perek 44, okay, Mem Dalet, and we're going to read from Pasuk, Pasuk 18. This is the Torah portion, and this is the portion that is called Vayigash. Very interesting word, why it is called Parsha Vayigash, and we're coming almost to the penultimate culmination of the Sefer HaBereshit, and this Torah portion now, so much disturbance. In this Torah portion now, it talks about finally the revelation of the brothers when they come to understand that the person they're dealing with in Mitzrayim is none other than their brother who they sold in Mitzrayim in Egypt. And that comes as a shock to them. And the story unfolds. And then the story comes to where Yaakov is brought into Mitzrayim, Egypt, and he meets his long lost son. It's very heartwarming. And then he's brought before Paro and blesses Paro. And he and Paro have a conversation. And they settle in the land of Goshen. And this is Parsha Vayigash in a nutshell. But there's some things which I want to highlight out here, and I want to talk to you about, because our entire faith that we know of, that what we studied, what we've known of, what we've grown up with in what we would call the Brit Chadashah in the New Testament, is based on this one principle, and the principle called Arvut. It's very essential for us to understand, because if we understand the principle called Arvut, now you will be very easy for you all to understand the entire New Testament and what God provided by way of salvation through the cross, what Yeshua has done. All this comes into perfect understanding, perfect perspective, if we understand the principle of Arvut, because it's the principle of Arvut now that comes into forefront, it comes into play. Now, principle of Arvut as a background, I want to share with you all, it's covenant based, right? It's covenant based. Why is it covenant based? Because in the book of Deuteronomy, in Parsha Nitzavim, just before they enter into the land, we will come to this towards the end of this Torah year, right? But right now, I just want to take a reference of Parsha Nitzavim. In Parsha Nitzavim, Moses calls all the heads of the children of Israel, and he tells them, "You are all standing here today before the Lord your God. Your chieftains, your rulers, your tribal heads, your children, your officers, your judges, everybody, you're all standing. You're all standing here before the Lord your God, and you'll have made this covenant with the Lord your God, but not only you who are standing here, but those who are not here and those who are going to come." Now that's very important. So if you look at this in the right context, What is Rav Moshe telling them? Rav Moshe is telling them that you are all standing here, each one of you, from the highest titled to the smallest child, okay, of accountable age, they're all accountable for each other. So there is a saying in Israel which says that whole Israel eruvim ze la ze. Each one in Israel is responsible for one another. But this is covenant based. So the concept of Arvut is concept based because it applies to the children of Israel in a way that because all of them together are in covenant with God, they are responsible for the welfare and the spiritual condition of each other. Now you would say, how is that possible? Right? We've never been taught or grown up to think in those manners, because what we have been taught from children is that it's my life with God. It's my life, how I want to live it with God. No one's going to dictate terms to me. No one is supposed to turn around and tell me that you are doing wrong or you're doing right, or you get accolades, or this is what, merits or demerits of my life. But that is not what Torah is, my friends. I want to very, very specifically say and drill it into each one of you all the process and the concept of Arvut. Arvut comes from the word Arav, which means guarantee. Guarantee is the great guarantee that each child of Israel is supposed to have for one another. That means any Jewish person has the God-given right to make sure that his brother Jew or sister, friend, brother, anybody would not fall. One, spiritually. Second, he would cater to his needs, look after him to the best of his ability, show kindness, love, and make sure that the soul does not be cut off from the spiritual food that comes from God. That means he's not cut off from the Father and he remains in covenant. That is the concept of Arvut. Because together they're all in this concept. But the question is, does it apply to us? Because we're not Jewish from Jewish background. We are grafted in to this covenant through Yeshua. But once we are grafted in, we also must learn to practice and display the sense of Arvut in our lives. For too long, the congregations world over have always said that you work out your salvation with fear and with trembling, and it's between you and God. It's got nothing to do with me. And that is absolutely wrong, friends. And this is what I want to correct today. That's why I coined today's Torah Shiur and the Torah's portion today as this guarantee, this Arvut, the process, the concept of Arvut. Very, very important. In this Torah portion, where do we see the display of Arvut? Where do we see how it is applied, by who it is applied, and what is the contextual understanding of this? Now, before I go ahead, I want to open up the book of Romans from the New Testament, the book of Romans, Perek Tet, right? Chapter 9, and we're going to read verse 1, 2, and 3. In fact, this entire chapter, unknown among the congregations world over, or churches world over, or the Christian body as such, they have no understanding of this concept of Arvut. But if you'll read this today, I'm going to probably open it up and show to you all as to how Rav Shaul, that is Paul, has a deep understanding of this concept of Arvut. And he has based the entire, if you want to say, the Christian faith, if you want to call it, that hinges around this concept of Arvut. Let's read verse 1. He says, Emet ani midbar besh Mashiach velo eshacher vedati meida lo beruach hakodesh. I say in truth in Christ, I lie not. My conscience bears witness in the Holy Spirit that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. Ki gadol azavenu ve'ain chetz le re'evon libi. Le re'evon libi. He says, I've got great heaviness in my heart and sorrow in my heart. Then he says in verse 3, Ki mi yiten hayito ani mecharem minha Mashiach bead achai asher ibaseri. For I could wish that I myself were accursed from Christ for my Jewish brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh. So he's saying now, get this affixed into your mind. He's saying now, if I can be sacrificed, if I can be accursed, put to death and suffer the death what my Savior, my Rabbi Yeshua done on that cross, I would gladly do it if my Jewish brethren would be saved because of it. I would love to emulate my Rabbi Yeshua. See what he adds. He says, who are the Israelites to whom pertains the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the service of God and the promises? To whose are the fathers, and of them and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came. It's very big. Now, I'm reading from the New Testament, friends. It's not Old Testament. What is Rav Shaul saying? It is for this Christ came, because the fathers were Jewish. And it is for the Jewish people Christ came. And in that process of bringing together Jewish people into the inheritance, through that, now the world would become and be made kosher in all its aspects. And the world would be made kosher in all its aspects because what Yeshua had done, he has rectified first the Jewish people, because to them were the promises, the covenants, and all. Okay, so Rav Shaul is saying this in very clear language out here. So he's saying that I wish that I myself would be accursed from God or from Christ because of my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. Now, if you have not got this, this is exactly what Arvut is all about. To guarantee somebody life when you sacrifice for it. And truly, Rav Shaul understood this perfectly. So when he encountered Yeshua, he understood the great Arvut, what Yeshua has done, and that is how he has applied the Torah into the context of what Yeshua has done for the Jewish people first, and then for you and me. Now, if I have time at some other session or some other course, I will explain to you how the nations are affected by Yeshua coming into this covenant, but Arvut applies mainly for the covenant-keeping Jewish people, and we who are grafted in also must learn to emulate this concept of Arvut. Okay, now when we turn back to Pasha Vayigash, the Pasha that we're studying today. Please turn with me to chapter 44 of the book of Genesis, and we're going to read from verse 18. I hope it's 18 in your Bibles because the English translations have a little up and down in the verses. Anyway, so it says out here in Pasha Vayigash, it says Vayigash elav Yehuda Vayomer bi Adoni Yadaber na Avdecha Daber beazani Adoni Velo Yechar Afecha beavdecha ki kemocha keparo. And then Yehuda approached Yosef. He approached him and said, please, if you please, my lord, may your servant speak a word in my lord's ear, and may your anger not flare up at your servant, for you are like Paro. Then he recounts to Yosef, we came the first time and then you've done this, and we came the second time, then you asked us to bring Binyamin. Now I brought Binyamin before you, and then he says, Binyamin's soul is tied up with the father. I cannot go back without him. And this is what he tells Joseph. Okay, let's read. We have an old father and a young child of his old age. His brother is dead. Alone is left to his mother, and his father loves him. Okay, then he says, but you said to your servants, if your youngest brother does not come down with you again, you will not see my face. So you put me into a position and you forced me to come and wanted me to bring my brother. Okay, and it was when we went up to your servant, my father, we told him my Lord's words, and the father said, go back, buy us some food. And then we said, we cannot go down if our youngest brother is with us, is not with us. Okay, we cannot see the man's face if our youngest brother is not with us. Then your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. 1 second. You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. Lo, he had 10 sons and one daughter from the others. What is Yaakov saying out here? You know that my wife had 2 sons. One has left me, and I said to myself, alas, he has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen his face until now. And should you take this one too from my presence, and disaster befall him, then you will have brought down my holiness, my gray evil to the grave. And his soul is bound up with his soul. So Yehuda is recounting every single thing to Joseph and trying to make him see reason as to, please don't be too harsh on us. I'm pleading with you on a certain level. But at the same time, Yehuda is also not what you think he's doing. He also has a tone of something else and a tone of something else on 3 different levels, which we're going to talk about. Then he says, it will happen that when he sees that the youth is gone, he will die, and your servants will have brought down the holiness of your servant to our father in sorrow to the grave. Verse 32. Verse 32 says, Ki avdecha arav, Ki avdecha arav et nahar ma'im avi le'amor im lo avi'avenu alecha ve'chatati ve'le'av kol ha'yamim. Because your servant took Arav, he took guarantee, he took responsibility for the youth from my father, saying, if I do not bring him to you, then I will have sinned before my father for all time. Now, please let your servant remain in place of the youth as a servant for my Lord. So he's saying, if I do not take this child back, Binyamin, then I would have sinned against my father forever and ever for all time. So please, I would stand in the stead of the son. You take my life, imprison me, hang me, cut my head off, do whatever you want, but let this child go back to his father. Big. This is Arav, my friends. Now you understand where do we get this concept of Arvut and entire the specter of humanity balances on Arvut. Truly, when Yeshua kept praying to his father, saying, Father, Father, me, don't look at them. Don't look at my brothers. Don't look at my Jewish brothers and sisters. I know what's happening, but look at me. I would offer myself instead of them. Now we are talking sense. And this is the meeting point between the Jewish concept of Arvut and where Christianity comes together. But no one has the temperament to sit down and say, yes, we both have a meeting point in the Torah and in the timeline of the faith and in Yeshua. The Jew must understand this, and a Christian also must understand the Jew, because when you talk to a Jewish person in the concept of Arvut, then he says, now you're talking Torah to me. Okay, my ears are open for me to understand what you're trying to say, and there will be a dialogue. But we, over 2000 years, have been going about this the wrong way. So hopefully I put the record straight to everybody. You know, there is a certain way we need to preach the gospel, but the gospel has to be in line with the Torah. If it's not in line with the Torah, there's something wrong, my friends. Okay, so this is basically the line of Arvut. But I want you to also look at another angle now. Last week, we studied a little about Yosef. We studied about the spiritual condition of Yosef, the soul that this boy is all about. And why these two Torah portions, Mecheds last time and Vayigash, are two levels of understanding biblical theology, right? Mecheds, last Torah portion, took us to a level of understanding the spiritual level of everything. Vayigash is bringing us down now to the terrestrial level to understand humanity, to understand people. And this is where I always stress that we have to be really grounded in our understanding of the Bible and the Torah, and even in our spiritual lives. It's very easy to take people up and to show them all these wonderful spiritual angles, and give them this spiritual dimensions above. But what happens is that there is a disconnect with living on this earth. And that is where this Torah portion comes into play, because now today I'm going to bring everybody down and say, now look at what the Torah is saying on the level of you and me first. So we have to cover both angles, the spiritual angle and the physical angle. And it's my duty to teach everybody that there is not only a spiritual angle to things, there's also a physical angle and an angle of you and me, because you and me have to live in this world. You and me have to make the kingdom of heaven, bring it down. And once we don't do it on the physical level, the spiritual level is not going to come down. Okay, so I'm going to draw all of y'all, wherever you're up and with different levels of spiritual angle, I'm going to draw all of y'all down. Now let's talk about Yosef the man, because last time we seen Yosef, the spiritual soul of Yosef. Now we're going to talk about Yosef, the nefesh, the man. Now, I'm going to make a very bold statement, which is also discussed among the sages in a certain way. Okay, they have an understanding of it, but I want to stress it because I want to bring everybody down, sober down and understand what the Bible is saying on a human level. From a child, Yosef displayed qualities of something what you would call today pure narcissism. Now you will be shocked when I'm saying this, but I'm looking at it from a different angle altogether. How would you define a narcissist? Someone who has a superior, gloated, overblown sense of himself. Okay, there is no empathy, there is no kindness, or he doesn't know, or she doesn't know what they're doing. They're trampling over the others. They just want their stuff. They're talking because only they want to be heard, right? You'll typically understand what narcissism is all about. A narcissist starts from a level of where either a person is not wanting to invest in reality around him, he's denying reality and he's creating his own reality and saying, this is what it is, everybody follow me, or you take a walk. Or it comes from a place where he's denying reality because of certain things that have happened in his life, certain hurts, conditions, and a lot of things that happen in life. So he is like, separating from that, creating his own reality. Or he could be somebody who's been given from a child a sense of importance, self-worth. You got to believe in yourself, and then that child grows up to thinking only about himself. Okay? And evidence in the Torah, in the Bible, points to this very, very same thing. Because when he was small, he was the favorite of Yaakov. Yaakov loved him, encouraged him, gave him a special coat, right? Now, when he was favored as a child, how did his brothers look at him? They must have all turned and said, oh, now father's got this child. He's going to be the favorite, and we are good for nothing, and we have no value in our father's eyes, and we are discarded. And then starts the tutu meme, starts this and starts that, and the ill feelings and the problem. We don't know exactly what is happening, whether there were daily fights, issues, problems between all the brothers and them. But Yaakov had a terrible time. That much I can say. So Joseph is growing up on one side, being actually rejected by his brothers because he cannot be with the sons of Leah. Therefore, he's been demoted by them and thrown with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. He says, go, you don't deserve to be with us. You go with the concubines' children. And he's out there with them, right? So the children of Leah reject him. He's there with Bilhah and Zilpah's children. And he's facing that, that ill treatment from small. But when he comes running to his father gives him all the love and encouragement in this world, gives him a sense of self-worth, who you are, trains him. I'm not going to touch about the spiritual thing that his father taught him. We've done that last time. We're talking about the man now. Okay. So now Joseph is growing in this environment. He's probably developing a sense of narcissism. And you can see this evident in the story. Why? Because one day he has a dream and he comes and he tells his brothers, listen, this is my dream. We were all cutting sheaves in the field and all your sheaves stood up and bowed before my sheaf. This is typically what a narcissist would do. Was around and say, I'm going to be the leader of all of you. You guys follow me, otherwise take a walk. This is what a narcissist would do. People, his brothers around him are saying, what? Who do you think you are? Then he has a second dream, where the sun, the moon, and the stars also bow down before him. And then his father tells him, will you stay quiet? What do you mean that even me and your mother and me also will bow down before you? Even his father Yaakov also rebukes him for this. But Joseph, I will getting what I'm saying. He's still, and this is what I tried to bring out on a certain level last Parsha and Mikhails, and I told you all, Joseph was not only dreaming, but he was developing a certain personality where he was driven to achieve from a human point of view. So from a purely human point of view, you look at this spoilt brat, talebearer, who believes in himself without bounds, okay, by which wherever he goes, his head is high and he's talking only things about himself, self-absorbed, and everybody around him hates him, really hates him. This is a problem. And because of this problem, okay, we have this entire story of Joseph and the brothers. Now, you know what they've done. They waited for the opportunity. They came when he came to them, and he seen them from. First of all, if he was a sensible guy, saying, I know my brothers hate me. I'm not going to approach my brothers with my father not around. He tells his father, okay, you're sending me, I will go. And he boldly goes to his brothers in Shechem, and they see him from afar. They're plotting to kill him, and he boldly goes up to them and says, "Oh, here I am. I want to see how you all are doing." They would have slapped him around, hung him, removed him, give him solid thrashing probably. We don't know. All the hatred would have come out at that point of time. We don't know exactly. And then they finally threw him to the wind. But at this point, whose idea was it to kill him? Whose idea was it to put him into the pit? Whose idea was it to sell him? Yehuda is the one who was the one who initially said, okay, let's knock him off. Then the eldest one, okay, the eldest son gets up and he says, no, you cannot do this. How can you do something like this? You can't do this, because I, being the eldest son, I am going to be responsible for this. So what does Reuben do? He says, no, you're not going to kill him, because I, being the eldest of the brothers, I am going to take responsibility for him. So do not kill him. Put him into the pit. We'll leave him out there, and then once we are ready to move, we will take him and give him back to the father. Because of this, ultimately what happens, he's sold to the Ishmaelites and to the Midianites, and this lands up in this thing. But all this is supposed to be a learning experience for the boy, right? He's supposed to climb down his ladder. He's supposed to learn humbleness. He's supposed to get rid of that full mind that his father's filled up with him and saying, you are a great guy. Get rid of it. And he's put through the situation of Potiphar. He goes to the thing with Potiphar's wife. Now, there are two angles to look at that incident with him and his Potiphar's wife. Two angles. One angle is that, okay, righteousness, that he does not succumb to holiness. He does not succumb to this act of fornication, and with his wife, Potiphar's wife wants to, sexually exploit him, right? Or he's a true narcissist because he believes that he's better than any Egyptian. He belongs to God and to the Hebrews, and Yaakov is his father, and I cannot do this with y'all. A superiority complex. What is the answer here? Is it truly that, or is it truly this? One of the two. That he's thrown into prison. In prison also, he still acts like, he's got a personality. And no doubt, the boy was a beautiful boy. He had a personality, and everything. He was taken notice of. He was given in charge, right? Even in the prison. But was he really broken? Was the man Yosef broken? Not the spiritual person. Was the man broken? Then in prison, 14 years almost in prison, till about 21 years. Finally, he is broken to the point that he tells the cupbearer, he says, if you go out, please talk to me, talk to Pharaoh about me. This is typical now. Either he is saying, the only one who can forgive me and give me a better life is Pharaoh. So please go and plead with Paro on my behalf. Maybe I can come out of this jail cell. Is that what Joseph is saying? Or he's saying, if you recommend me to Paro, my dreams would come true. So Joseph is operating on a different level. The man Joseph is operating on a different level. But in all that he is doing, God is also working with him. The eternal Father is accomplishing his purpose through the life of Joseph, right? So I want you to understand this one thing very clearly. No matter what you see in life, different people, different situations, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything that's happening, God is in control of everything, my friends. And through everything that's happening, God has his purpose. He has his purpose of everything. So now we come to this place where he's second to Paro. He's sitting on that throne. He's entertaining his brother and he's having a field day with his brothers. Come, go, enjoying himself. But why does Joseph have to play this game? What is he waiting for? So they came the first time. He was stern with them, gave them food and went. They went, right? He never disclosed who he was. They came the second time, okay? He accused them of something, brought them back. Now, why does Joseph ask for Binyamin? Is he genuinely interested in seeing his brother? I would say yes, obviously, it's his brother. Why is he asking for his brother? Because he wants to know whether the brothers have destroyed him also. If they could sell him, they could very well do the same to Binyamin also. Yes, he wanted to know whether his brothers are alive. His brother is alive, and he comes to know that he's alive, bring him down. But what's the idea of bringing him down? This is not what we have thought. This far we have not thought. The idea of bringing him down is that if you bring Binyamin down, that's the only way to bring your father also here. So now Joseph is pushing it. He's pushing it. He's pushing his narcissistic behavior, is pushing it to that level where he's wanting to punish, he's wanting to substantiate, he's wanting to make sure. You remember his dreams? He said, all of you are going to bow down before me. Even his mother and father. And what happens before Yaakov passes away? He's on the bed and it says Yaakov bowed low at the head of the bed. And he raised his feet and he gave up his spirit. So the question here we are dealing with is, I mean, does the man Yosef have any conscience? He was wronged. Everything happened to him fine. I understood that, right? He could have, put them in jail for 1 year and then brought them out after 1 year and said, okay, you have done my time. I've finished my punishment. I am your brother Yosef. Now let's move on, right? But he played around with them and he was taking joy out of this. He was taking a sense of, real joy out of everything. But at the same time, the other side of him was, bursting in tears and he was crying and he was. So ultimately, what happens is that he brings Benjamin, he frames Benjamin, and then he reveals himself to his brothers, right? And they are completely in shock. Completely in shock. They're stunned. They do not know how to negotiate the situation. Because at any point, they will just wait for Joseph to say, army, arrest, put them behind jail, get them to execution. They were just struck. And that's why we come to this place out here. And then when just before he reveals himself and he's negotiating for that space, it's Yehuda who comes in the front and he says, Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi Adoni vaydaberna. Alecha daver be'azani adoni ve'lo yachar afecha be'avdecha ki kamocha paro. Says, and Judah approached. Now, why did Judah approach him? Because Judah was the one who wanted to kill him. And Judah was the one who started this ball rolling. And finally, Judah had this entire Joseph thing on his conscience since then. Because once the story of Joseph is sold and it's done and dusted, and they come back to the father saying, does this belong to your son Joseph? I think a wild beast has killed him and he's dead. And Yaakov literally spiritually dies. Spiritually dies. But then what happens to Judah? Because the next chapter after that immediately says, and Judah went down from the high hills of Judea. He went down the Shephelah and he came to this place and he mingled with the Hittite there and with Shelach and all these other people. And then he married someone over there and he fell into sin. And then what happened with Tamar? So all that was a spiritual condition. Why was Judah not with his brothers? Because now they could not face their father and all of them were fighting with each other. I think we should tell. I think we should confess. I think, no, we should not do that. None of them had the face to confess their father. So they all went their own way. And it specifies specifically about Judah because Judah goes down and he comes to this place, Shua. He meets this person, his friend Shua, okay, and then he starts doing business out there. He's not with his brothers, and then Tamar and you'll know the full story. And then Tamar lands up sleeping with Judah, and then she gets these two children, Perez and this one, and that's the lineage of the Messiah of King David. You know, a whole lot of stuff goes on from there. The story goes on, friends. So now Judah is actually in a fallen state until Tamar brings him back to his senses. In whatever Tamar has done and Judah has done in that state of sin, Tamar was the one who showed him righteousness, because she does not say, Judah, you're the one, you're the father of these children. He says, to whom this belongs to is the father. And then Judah confessed and said, you're righteous in what you have done. Now, Judah is rectifying for that sin. So he approaches Joseph out here and he's negotiating on behalf of Benjamin as a rectification of what happened. So that's why it says Vayigash Elav Yehuda. Now this word Vayigash is a very interesting word. Okay, it's a very interesting word. The word Vayigash can be applied in a couple of ways, specifically in three ways. Now, the first way the word Vayigash can be applied is approach, but not approach in the way that you and me think it is. So it's actually more confrontational. So, you are negotiating with somebody, but you're strong. You're not giving in. Saying, okay, you're saying this, but let me tell you what I want also. Okay. So it's not that, I'm folding my hands, I'm shivering, and I'm approaching and saying, please, please, please. No, I am also standing my ground, but I'm negotiating space. That's why he connects this entire story to him. And he says, you better reason. You have to reason with me now because we have to come to certain understanding. So that is the meaning of Vayigash. It's more confrontational, and he was ready for all situations. That means if Joseph heard and said yes, great. If he acted violently and wanted to process out with them, he would stand up and there would be bloodshed. That means he was prepared for all angles. That's the meaning of Vayigash. Okay, so keep this in mind. So one way is confrontational. The other way is reconciliation. That, okay, come on. Okay, this and it's this, and we can reconcile. We'll forget about this. We'll do that. It's hit a conciliatory note, and let's carry on with life. The third is prayer. Okay, I've taken the verses down. So if you'll have, it is used In 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 13, it's used in a confrontational way. In a conciliatory note tone, it's used in the book of Joshua 14:6. And from a prayer point of view, it's used in 1 Kings 18:36. 1 Kings 18:36. So it's used in many ways, Vayigash. But then there was this sage called Rabbi Eliezer who comes and says, you cannot pinpoint what Yehuda is doing at you, that he's only doing one thing. He's doing all the three together. That means he's keeping all his options open. He's praying that we be released. He's setting a conciliatory tone also and giving a leeway to Joseph. At the same time, he's being confrontational. He's saying, he's standing his ground. He says, I'm not going to give ground to you, okay? Because I know from my heart that you've done nothing wrong. Nevertheless, let's talk. Okay? And this is why Yehuda is a character that is supposed to be the leader. He's got these qualities of being the leader, right? That's why it says the skeptic shall not leave from Yehuda until Shiloh come. Okay. So that's Vayigash. But if I look at Vayigash, I want to show you all something really amazing, friends. I just want to write something for you all today. And I want you to understand the power of Gematria, which I want to show you today. Okay, so let's look at this word Vayigash. Once again, if I share whiteboard, now all of you all who are learning the Hebrew with us would understand what I'm doing. If you don't understand what I'm doing, please ask me. We will teach. That's why I say it's very important to study the Hebrew. Okay, so we're looking at the word Vayigash, right? This is Vav, this is Yod, Gimel, and Shin, right? Vayigash. But if I take the word Vayigash and I expand it into its full, right? If I expand each consonant, I will expand the Vav into Vav, two Vavs, because Vav and Vav is equal to Vav, right? Yud will be Yud, Vav, and Dalet, which is Yod. Gimel would be Gimel, Yud, Mem, and Lamed. Gimel, right? And Shin would be Shin. And Shin and Nun Sofit. Okay, now let's look at this very clearly. Okay, if I remove, because this Vav is Vayigash, right? Okay, Vayigash. If I look at the other, because I've expanded the word Vayigash, right? This Vav out here, okay, is equal to 6. The Yud, the Vav and the Dalet is equal to 10, right? The Yod, the Mem, and the Lamed, this is 10 plus 40 plus 30 is equal to 80, right? And sorry, Shin is Shin, Yod, and Nun Sofit. So this Nun Sofit and Yod is equal to 60. Okay, now let's interpret 10, 60, 80, and 6. 6 we know is Vav. Let me change this color. What color should I use? Okay, so this 6 is Vav, this 10 is Yud, this 80 is Pe, okay, and 60 is Samek. If I take these consonants, I get the word Yosef. Embedded in the word Vayigash is the name Yosef. This is absolutely amazing. I'm going to let it remain there for a few seconds so you guys can soak it in. Okay. which I will get the recording finally. Embedded in the word Vayigash is the name Yosef. When you'll study Hebrew with us and you'll learn to a certain level of the Hebrew consonants and the words, you will understand the secrets of everything. Now, why is the name Yosef embedded in the word Vayigash? Absolutely brilliant. Because Yosef now, okay, he's being approached. So Yosef is being approached in this word Vayigash, and he's being confronted in a confrontational manner by Yehuda. But although he is the ruler of Pharaoh, but he's approaching who? He's approaching Yosef. Yehuda cannot see it. He cannot see it. This is where they say that the Jewish person today cannot see his Yosef. He cannot see his suffering Messiah. Because Yosef is hidden in this confrontational Vayigash. Because where is Yeshua? Yeshua is in Mitzrayim. Yeshua is in Edom. He is with Esav today. He is with the Christian world. He's not with the Jewish people. So whenever the Jewish people are looking at Yeshua, they're saying, it's Vayigash. They're looking at this ruler of Egypt. They cannot see Yosef embedded inside. They cannot see the suffering Messiah. They're not looking for the King Messiah there. They're not looking for David HaMelech. They're looking for the suffering Messiah. And Yosef is the suffering Messiah. Embedded in Vayigash is the suffering Messiah. So who are they approaching actually? They're approaching the suffering Messiah. But they cannot see the suffering Messiah. That is why they're not able to reconcile and say, okay, and understand what Yeshua has done. But being a Christian and understanding what Yeshua has done for you is very important because it's based on Arvut. But if we tell the Jewish people, one second, isn't this Arvut? He would strike a reconciliatory tone and say, yes, okay, now you're talking sense. Now you're talking from the Torah point of view that I can entertain the thought that somebody has performed the act of Arvut for me. That's why Yeshua says in the New Testament, says, y'all are no more my disciples. Y'all are my friends. And greater love does no man have than to lay down his life for his friends. Listen, this concept of Arvut is the bedrock of our Christian faith, and it is also the bedrock of the faith on the Torah. It is where we as Christians, born as Christians, derive the sense of Arvut. And likewise, you and me must learn to inculcate the same sense of Arvut into our lives. Now, we cannot do the things Yeshua done on that cross, but to a great extent, the you and the me and the us, we all have to have a sense of Arvut for each other. It's the bedrock of piety. It's the bedrock of our faith. And Rav Shaul understands this and he knows this. And he says, I wish that I myself would be given, offered, would be cursed from Christ for my brethren. So as much as we say, the New Testament has got nothing to do with the Old Testament. It's got nothing to do. Hello, I got news for everyone. The foundation is still the Old Testament. Even though Yeshua has done what he done, but it's the foundation, it's still Old Testament, it's still Arvut. And this is what Rav Shaul is saying with them, my friends. He took the spiritual guarantee for his brothers, his Jewish brothers, and to any one of us who also come to him. This is the beauty of Yeshua. This is the beauty of what he done. Now, in all that Yosef is, you see how he attained this position, because from a spiritual angle, okay, God was with him. God was working with him. God empowered him, imbibed him with all those qualities and the thing. We studied that last time in the kids. But today we see a different side of Joseph. Now, Joseph, when he brings his two sons in the next part in Vaiki, when we study that, we will study what a blessing. Also, he's still telling his father, father, you're crossing your hands, right? He's still displaying that narcissistic behavior, but even in that, God is still using him. Still using him. Now, when Yaakov dies, also the brothers are afraid. What will What will Yosef do to us? Since our father is dead, he may take revenge on us. We don't know. But I think he pushed it to a great point, and then that narcissistic behavior just broke inside of him. And he said, "I can't take this anymore." And then he just broke and he said, "Come close to me. I'm your brother Yosef, who you sold. Come." Because so in other words, I'm trying to say that God needed the narcissistic Yosef to accomplish this plan. That is why we have to be very attentive, very kind, and very understanding to people around us. Because you don't know, however a person is, there's a reason, and God is still using that person for whatever level that person is operating in this life, friends. We have to understand the bigger and the grander picture of everything. We have to understand the plan that one day the Jewish nation would see Yosef in Vayigash. They will see Yosef. And once they understand that, okay, this is what it's all about. It's about Arvut. I understand Arvut. The Jew understands Arvut. And Paul says this over here. I'll read this again to drive this point. He says, "For I could wish that I myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertains the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the service of God and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came." So I rest my case with all of this, my friends. Understanding Torah in different levels is very, very important. Understanding Torah in the spiritual understanding is extremely important. But what we have always missed in our life is to understanding Torah in this angle. We have to be grounded. We have to be rooted. We have to understand that there is a literal level of studying Torah as to understand what is actually happening on a human level. We have to understand both the spiritual and the terrestrial. And this is what I said in the beginning. I'm going to pull you all down from wherever you all are and bring you all down to the terrestrial to make you all understand the human angle for everything in this story, friends. So I just hope you all are blessed. I just hope you all are able to grasp everything which was taught today. Before I end, I want to jump to this portion where Joseph settles his brothers into the land of Goshen, right? Towards the end of this parsha. And he brings, in chapter 47, and Paro says, the land of Egypt is before you, go and settle the land of Goshen. And they go, and they bring their livestock and and they settle and they are comfortable in the land of Goshen, right? And then after he deals with his brothers, in verse 7 it says, Vayavo Yosef et Yaakov aviv ve'ya'amadahu lifnei Paro Vayibrak Yaakov et Paro. And then Joseph brought Yaakov his brother and stood him before Paro. And Jacob blessed Paro. He gave him a blessing. And then Paro said to Joseph, how many are the days of the years of your life? What do you mean? This is an old man standing there and he says, how old are you? Why does he ask him this question? Why could he have not said, dear Jacob, we are so wonderful to have you. What a beautiful son you have. It's been a blessing to me. I welcome you into Egypt. Have the best of Egypt. Have, this is all yours. And he turns around out of everything. He says, how old are you? Really? This is what you ask somebody? How old are you? You ask an old person, can you tell me your age? Sometimes it's very insulting, right? How old are you? See what a beautiful question. Now let's try to unravel this question. We'll unravel this question. Because when I was reading Ramban, he kind of unraveled this question in a very beautiful way. It's not a very simple question. First of all, why did he ask Yaakov this question? Because Yaakov was so old and haggard, literally bending to the ground, his life half dissipated out of him, white, rugged, completely without life, just about living. So when Paro sets his eyes on him, he says, man, how old are you? So if he's saying that, okay, Joseph would have been 100 years old, you look like you're 200. Why do you look like 200? Really, how old are you? So Paro was very confused. He says, man, this man looks like really old, ancient. Is he like 200 years old? So I need to ask him, how old are you actually? So this is the point of the question. Now the question is, Paro seeing something. He's seeing this old rugged man in his leg looks really ancient. And Joseph, but why is Jacob in that state? Why is Yaakov in that state? Let's read. And then Yaakov says to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourns have been 130 years. And then he says, few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. And they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers in the days of their sojourns. And Jacob blessed Paro and he left Paro's presence. Simple answer. Okay, let's read this now. Let's read in Hebrew. Okay, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro Yime Shne Megori. The days and the years of my sojourning, Shiloshim u'me'et shana me'et ve'raim kav yeme shene kai velo ha shigu et yeme shene kai. So he's using two words out here. One, he's using the word meguri, the days of my sojourning on this earth. Okay, has been 130 years. And then he's saying, but few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. I will quote this on. The days of my physical sojourning on this earth has been 130 years. If that's what you're asking me, I'm 130 years. But the reason you're seeing me so old and haggard and ancient and this thing is because my life has been few and has been few and bad have been the days of me living, not sojourning in this land. So Yaakov, is he complaining that his life is not good? Someone asks you, how old are you? Are you going to complain? My life has been bad, yeah. Are you getting the point? See, in the English, we're not able to understand exactly what's happening here. Paro is saying, okay, how old are you? And he says, okay, I've been 130 years and my life has been like, not so good. Okay, really? But we're getting to depth of what's exactly happening out here. Why does Yaakov say, my sojournings, my physical existence has been 130 years, but my chai, my life has been. Then he says, that is why, if you think I look old, my ancestors have lived further, even more than me. So don't be alarmed at how I look. This thing, the reason I look old and rugged and this thing is because my life has been really hard. I'm bent. I'm really hard. It's been a terrible life. Terrible life. Why has his life been terrible? Because when you have 12 sons who don't listen to you and who have all the issues in this world and you constantly that you don't agree with, and they've sold one brother and they want to take another brother and do away with them, and this one is doing that and he's doing this, you think you're going to have a good life? No. In other words, he's saying, my ancestors have lived far bigger than me, but their living kai has been greater than mine. That means I have not reached the level of kai of life what my ancestors like Abraham and Yitzhak have reached. I've lived 130 years, but I've not reached the level of grace and kindness of my ancestors. Wow, this is beautiful, friends. This is really beautiful. So Yaakov has a sense that I have not achieved what I was supposed to achieve, like Yitzhak and Abraham before me. I have not. That is why you're asking this question, and that is why I look ancient and old, but nevertheless, my time has been only 130 years, not more than that. So I end today, friends, with this for you all to reflect on the secrets of the Torah and many angles and many things what the Torah talks to us. But this is only possible, friends, when we know the Hebrew language and we understand many Hebrew things, friends. So that's why I keep saying, time to learn, friends. Please come to us. You will learn many things. Learn the Hebrew language and grow yourself. Till we meet next time, God bless each one of you all. Shabbat Shalom. Till we meet next weekend.
Great teaching.
Shabbat Shalom.